Today on the Bandrew Says podcast, we're going to be talking about Jack Black launching his own YouTube channel, Google Chromecasts getting hacked, and a couple of other things, so go ahead and stick around. Greetings, Earthlings, and welcome back to episode 151 of the BSP. My name is Bandrew. This is what I says. Like always, down below there are timestamps of everything that I talk about, so you can skip around and save a couple of minutes. But if you got the time, I would appreciate you if you would check out the entire dang episode. If you do want a different version, i.e. audio or video, or a different episode, you can find all that information at bandrewsays.com. And lastly, again, this was a very slow news week, but I am hoping that this drought will finally come to an end because we are entering CES week, so we should see a lot of new product announcement and a lot of new technologies being announced. So hopefully next week we'll have a lot more interesting stuff to talk about, but until then, I got a personal thing, and that would be last week was episode 150, and I completely forgot to celebrate it, so I wanted to take a quick second and thank all of you for watching and listening for 3 years. That is absolutely amazing. As I mentioned last week, I feel like the show has really grown a lot in terms of content coverage, content focus, and everything around the show. And the audience feedback and conversation that we have been having has been amazing to watch increase and develop and become something that I really, really look forward to, including the AskBandrew segment, which is just absolutely insane. And lastly, I just wanted to end this by saying that I'm honored and flattered that you choose to spend 45 minutes, plus or minus 20 minutes, every single week listening to me and hanging out with me and listening to me slowly lose my mind. So I appreciate each and every one of you. You are incredible, and it doesn't go unnoticed. I appreciate every single one of you so much. Now, let's go ahead and Let's talk about Jack Black infiltrating YouTube. What is happening? Jack Black, the comedian, musician, and actor, started a channel a few weeks ago, and he already has nearly 3 million subscribers. And he only has 3 videos released. 3 videos, 3 million subscribers. So 1 million subs per video. Just let that sink in for a second. He had 2 million subscribers when all he had was a 30-second introduction video saying, hey, this is my channel, as well as a video saying, thanks for 1 million subscribers. He grew that quickly. By the time he released the thanks for 1 million subs, he was already nearing 2 million. And he's only released one video of actual content, and now he's at 3 million. It's absolutely insane. Now, as I've said in the past, I do think that celebrities coming to the platform has the possibility or the potential to be good for the YouTube community as a whole. And I say that because there's the possibility that they'll bring their existing fans to the platform and turn them into regular YouTube viewers. And the more active users and viewers there are on YouTube, the more potential audience each of us smaller creators have. Now, the thing that's so endearing about Jack Black's new channel, which is called Jablinski, such a goofy name, but I absolutely love it, is that it's so low budget and his son is doing everything behind the scenes other than being the face on the camera. Jack Black is only the actor, for lack of a better word, in this series. His son seems to be doing everything else from content strategy to actually editing and uploading and everything else. So there is still this knowledge of the platform, this knowledge of the memes and everything that goes on YouTube, which makes it a little bit more accessible or more appealing to the general YouTube audience, at least that I'm aware of. And because of that, it seems a lot less like the I have millions of dollars, let's take the Casey Neistat vlog style, hire a team to make my videos, and go from there. It seems a lot less like that, and it seems like this is actually a very DIY operation. It's just Jack Black, his son, making videos about what they want to make videos about, and there's something that is very endearing about that. Now, on that note, I've seen other celebrities try and fail miserably because they go the route of trying to rip off Casey Neistat and hiring entire teams to produce their content, which does not fly on YouTube. YouTube is appealing because people let their guard down. People are authentic on YouTube. So if you hire a whole team to make your videos and make it into a film production, essentially, there's not much appeal to that. I saw an actor, Mayim Bialik, TV's Blossom, and she also plays Amy Farrah Fowler on The Big Bang Theory. She had a channel, or maybe she still does. I haven't checked it in a while. But it was very authentic. It was very her. She was sharing stories about her life. She was offering advice, and it didn't seem like this big 10-person production. So I think people like Mayim Bialik and Jack Black and his kid are going about it the right way, and they're not trying to bring Hollywood to YouTube. They are just using YouTube as it was intended, or at least how it has developed and evolved into a very DIY kind of FU system. We're going to do it our way. We're going to do it ourselves. I think that is why those two channels that I mentioned are a little bit more appealing than these huge productions. Now, with that being said, we will have to wait and see how Jack Black's Jablinski channel progresses, because it is possible that once they realize how much money can be made from this, that they go full sellout and just go balls to the wall, hiring a bunch of people, turning it into a Smosh-style channel. But let's hope not. Let's hope it stays authentic. Let's hope it stays Jack Black being his weird self. Let's hope it stays Jack Black's kid, I wish I knew his name, is just still editing and telling his dad what to do, bringing him or making him aware of all these memes like the PewDiePie chair thing or mentioning Ninja or any of these things. I hope that is what happened. And I'm going to end this story by saying one thing. Quick side note, Jack Black is actually in one of my all-time favorite comedy films, The Cable Guy. If you have not seen that film, 100% go watch it. I think it is one of Jim Carrey's best performances, and it also has Matthew Broderick and, of course, Jack Black. Highly recommend it. It is a bizarre one. And that is it for YouTube news. Next, we got a kind of YouTube news, and it is that Google Chromecasts are being hacked. So people who have Chromecasts set up were hacked to display a message that said, "Subscribe to PewDiePie." And this is apparently possible due to some setting on the user's routers that allows for universal plug and play. And I think that at this point, these hackers, it's nothing more than memeing, but I do also think that there is some amount of good that can come from it. And I say that because these people hacking the Chromecasts or hacking people's printers could go into this with nefarious intent and try to exploit these for their own personal gain. But that's not what they're doing. They are essentially just showing people, hey, you're exposed, and now that we've told you that, go ahead and subscribe to PewDiePie and fix the dang exploit or this hole in your security that is allowing us to do this. So after actually analyzing this and thinking through it and determining that there is some good to it, I found a statement from Hacker Giraffe, who is one of the people who did all of these hacks. And he said, "We want to help you and also our favorite YouTubers. We're only trying to protect you and inform you of this vulnerability before someone takes real advantage of it." And there it is. That is the end of the story. Honestly, just check your router settings. Make sure you don't have universal plug and play turned on. Make sure you don't have your router open. Make sure it's password protected. And do not use the password that's just written on the bottom of the router. Always change your password and make it very difficult for anybody to just guess it. Don't make it your last name. That would be stupid. So that is the end of that story. Next, we got a scary one. Chinese schools are tracking the exact location of their students. Now, this is currently implemented in 10 schools, and it has been since 2016. So they've got a lot of data and a lot of experience with this, over 2 years. Now, these students have smart uniforms, and this is apparently in order to encourage better attendance rates. There are going to be trackers in the shoulders of these uniforms, and the entrances of these 10 schools has facial recognition to make sure that a student is wearing the correct jacket or that they don't have two jackets on so somebody can play hooky and your friend is just wearing your jacket for you, which is just, It's insane. So if you were to swap uniforms and the facial recognition determined that, hey, the wrong person is wearing this jacket, an alarm will sound. Or if you decide to play hooky and walk out of school when you don't have written permission, then an alarm will sound. Is anybody scared yet? I am scared of this. The Chinese state-run newspaper, Global Times, came out and stated, the uniform might provoke privacy concerns. You think? As the system can locate students even in non-school hours. We choose not to check the accurate location of the students after school. But when the student is missing and skipping classes, the uniforms help locate them. Yeah, okay. Why don't I believe you at all? We choose not to abuse this. Okay, sure. Could it be possible that you end up using this location data to track somebody down who has a political idea that you don't agree with? Is that a possibility? But Bandrew, couldn't they just take off their jackets? Of course they could. Of course they could just take off their jacket. But you're not looking far enough down the road or looking deep enough into the conspiracy corner, which we're not even going to go to because this is no longer a conspiracy. This is the real world. Yeah, they could take the jacket off. But how long until this type of clothing becomes regulated or required in China? And if you choose not to wear a piece of clothing like this, perhaps they could go ahead and dock and decrease your social credit score, meaning that you can't get a good job, you can't get loans, and you can't travel. So they have a big way to motivate you to wear clothing that tracks you all the time. And if you have any kind of negative political ideas of the Chinese government, then guess what? They're going to track you down and make you disappear. Or at least they have the possibility or the ability to track you down and make you disappear because you are forced to wear clothing that tracks you all the time. Does anybody else see this? This is terrifying. The writing is on the wall here. I fear for people who live in China, and I wish you the best of luck because this is some straight dystopian nightmare fuel. This is terrifying. This is terrifying. And how long until other countries start adopting this because they see how much power it allows them to have over their people? Oh, we don't like what that person's thinking. We can track them down and make them disappear, or at least really strongly motivate them to change their ideas. Terrifying stuff. That is actually it for the news. So let's talk about what I've been testing. I've been testing a lot of stuff. But right now, I am only going to talk about one thing, and that is what you have been listening to this entire episode, which is the Neumann BCM-705, which is the only dynamic microphone that I am aware of from Neumann. So it's a pretty unique microphone, from Neumann at least. This thing is a hypercardioid microphone. It's got a 20-to-20 frequency response with a peak at 5 kilohertz and 7 kilohertz. It also starts rolling off the low end at around 200 hertz to curb some of that proximity effect. But if you get right on top of it, you can start to utilize that back to your preference. And also, it starts to cut above 9 kilohertz, so it rolls off a lot of the air frequencies. It has a sensitivity, negative 55 decibels, so it is a relatively quiet microphone. And it's got a 200 ohm impedance. That's it for the microphone. I'm not going to make my statements on how I think it sounds because this is my first time recording the podcast. I will reserve my right to do so at a later date. But I would love to hear from you. What do you think of this microphone? I am not going to do any EQ to it, but I will add my compression and all the other stuff that I do to it to make it sound better and easier to listen to. Next week, I'll start EQing it a bit more, or actually EQing it. Now let's jump to what you had to say. First comment comes from Anthony. He says, our main goal for this year is to start the video uploads of the podcast, plus more videos from events we attended. Anthony, I think that is an awesome goal, especially because you and your wife have such an amazing rapport where you just go back and forth so well with each other that I cannot wait to see more videos from you and see the type of events you're attending and see videos of you guys shooting. That will be absolutely amazing to see. I want to see if you can pull off some Robin Hood style stuff in those event videos. So great comment, great goal. Can't wait to see how you do with that. Next comment comes from Dark Paladin. He says, well, After a host of mic reviews, it is hard to keep existing viewers because once they purchased their microphone, they need not watch you anymore. Perhaps you can segregate mic reviews according to applications, like choir, live, videography, recording ambience. But you need people to sing for you though, and you need rooms, etc. Not an easy task. Dark Paladin, that is a very, very good point, and that is something that I've realized as well. It's something I realized from the very beginning, once I would start to see, oh, my subscribers are growing, but my views are not growing equally. And that's because people watch the video, they determine the microphone that they want to buy, and then they move on. So I've always had this plan or these ideas to expand outside of just doing microphone reviews. I would like to eventually get to the point where I have the time and the money to get rooms, hire singers, do all sorts of things to expand on what I am able to do or what I am able to demonstrate these microphones as, because currently it is very limited to just the microphone search or the audio interface search, which is why I want to expand into doing more education as well as more entertainment. Edutainment. God, I hate myself. But I have started to I've started to develop more playlists. That's because those add another level of searchability. So if somebody were to search microphone locker essentials, maybe my playlist would show up because I just started that playlist. I haven't added enough microphones to it. I think there's only 2 at this point. But I've also done ENG microphones, which is electronic news gathering microphones. Those are the omnidirectional dynamics. And then a handheld dynamics is another one that I launched, which has maybe 60 videos on there. There's a lot there. So I have started to do the playlist thing. I started a couple of weeks ago or a couple of months ago, just have not kept up with it. And I would like to expand and add more tests, make it more thorough. But as you know, because you pointed out, not an easy task, takes time, takes money, takes a lot of backside work to hire a choir and hire or rent a room to record all of that stuff. But great comment, great ideas. Next email comes from, whoa, Chris! Bandrew, as you told me, as long as the content is good, other things aren't as important. Your content is always top-notch, and I love your channel, and I love being a part of the community. You're going to blow up in 2019, not only because of your dedication to the craft, but because you're just so darn good at what you do. Chris, thank you very much, and just so everybody knows, I did not include this to boost my ego or anything. I included this to remind everybody content is king. You can have $100,000 worth of videography gear, and if your content sucks, nobody's going to watch. Conversely, you could just have an iPhone and make the best content ever, and people will watch, and they will forgive, I guess, a little bit of lackluster production quality because the content is there and they are seeing value there. As far as me blowing up in 2019, I don't see that happening. I have a very niche area, microphones, and then content creator news analysis. Not necessarily big growth opportunities there, but I don't care. I'm not doing it to blow up and get insanely popular. I'm doing it because I enjoy doing it. It's a lot of fun for me, so I'm just going to keep making videos. If I do blow up, so be it. I don't know if I'd want the added stress that comes along with it because I already stress enough as far as my reviews. There's been some times where I'm like, oh my God, I'm freaking out about this one, man. I am freaking out because this is, I don't want to come across as a dick. I have been so negative. Simply put, I currently stress enough with 80,000 subs or whatever it is. I don't know if I could handle 1 million subs, so we'll see. But thank you very much for the comment, Chris. I appreciate it. And remember, everybody, content is king. That saying exists for a very good reason. The last comment comes from Heather. I'm going to skip the first portion of this, but she says, I achieved almost all of my 2018 goals and exceeded some of them, which I am really happy with. 2019 for me is about giving value, continuing to learn and apply those learnings, and building on and establishing new connections, reaching more people with the podcast and guests for the summits, and being a part and building a community of empowered and passionate people. P.S. Rhett Hall's business is Cardinal Branding and Design, and it was a really entertaining mic review. Heather, thank you very much for the comment. And if anybody watching or listening does not know by now, I don't know what rock you've been living underneath, but Heather is the host of Sunshine and Power Cuts, which you can find at sunshineandpowercuts.com. It is a podcast about off-the-grid living as well-being. Amazing show. And I have never seen someone do such a good job and excel at making connections. And also, I don't think I've seen anybody have such a positive impact on communities that they're a part of. Any community that Heather's a part of, people just love her. She's such a ray of sunshine in those online communities, which everybody knows can be pretty vitriolic and disgusting. But then you got Heather in there and everybody just likes her. It's amazing. So Heather does an amazing job at making connections. And thank you for being a member or a part of the podcasters community, and Discord, on YouTube, everywhere, and watching and commenting on the Bandrew Says podcast. You're amazing, and I cannot wait to see what you accomplish in 2019, because I have no doubt that it is going to be incredible. Now, let's jump to my favorite part of the podcast, the Ask Bandrew segment. All right, so if you guys got any questions, go ahead and send them to askbandrew@gmail.com, and I will answer them on an upcoming episode of the podcast. We got a bunch of emails this week. Some of them are rather long, so I am going to just summarize what they are asking because I don't want to read so much. I don't like reading. It's not that I don't like it, it's just that I'm bad at it. So the first email comes from Tony, and he asks, what kind of specs do I need in my computer to run virtual instruments? Because right now he has an Asus laptop from 2012 with Windows 10, it's 64-bit, a Core i5 processor, and 8 gigabytes of RAM. And I'm going to start by answering your email and saying, I am not terribly familiar with computer specs. I just buy computers and expect them to work. And in most cases, that has been the case. My understanding of this entire issue, based on some Google searches, is a minimum would be 4 gigs of RAM, a decent multi-core CPU, and you should be fine. It sounds like you're going to be fine with a Core i5, Windows 10, and 8 gigabytes of RAM. Of course, you could bog down any system by adding 100 virtual instruments because that will tax any processor. But if you are just running a couple, maybe an electric piano, maybe a drum machine, anything like that, you should be fine with your system. Give it a shot. Just give it a shot. It'll most likely work. You say that your computer can run programs like FL Studio fine. If that's the case, you're going to be fine. DAWs typically aren't too processor intensive, so you should be good to go with what you got, as long as you're not running 100 virtual instruments. Next email comes from Alibaba. He says, Dear Bandrew, I have not been listening to you for long and decided to start to listen to your podcast on Spotify. The minute I played the podcast, my ears started to hurt. The sound quality was like, no joke, listening to your podcast on YouTube at low quality, 240p-ish. This problem also is present with other podcasts on Spotify. What is the problem? Alibaba, great question. I'm going to give you an answer to the best of my knowledge. This is because, if I am not mistaken, Spotify takes the MP3s of your podcast and hosts it on their server, and they likely re-encode it at some different quality to save some space. Additionally, I am guessing that at some point, maybe currently, Spotify does dynamic ad insertion in some podcasts, and in order to do that, I believe that they would need to have the MP3 file on their server to say, okay, cut at this point, cut at this point, cut at this point, insert this ad here, insert this ad here, insert this ad here. Because of that, they are hosting files, they're downloading the files to their own server, re-encoding, making cuts where they want to insert dynamic ads, and then releasing those, rather than just having a pass-through from the actual RSS feed, which likely does have higher quality MP3s. So I'm guessing that is what is happening and why Spotify audio sucks so bad for podcasts, because they're trying to save space, and there are a lot of podcasts out there That's my take on it. Maybe if somebody out there, maybe if you work at Spotify, let me know. Let me know what is going on with your MP3s. What quality are you re-encoding them at? And why are you storing the files on your own server? Is it because of dynamic ad insertion? Let me know. Email me, askbandrew@gmail.com, and put in there, I work at Spotify. This is what we're doing to your MP3 files, and this is why. Long subject for an email, but go ahead and do that, Spotify employees. Next email comes from Dimitri. He says, please, I want you to tell me between Focusrite Clarett 2 pre-USB, Tascam UH7000, and Arturia Audiofuse, which audio interface has better quality preamps? I will start by saying I have never used the Focusrite Claretts, and I have never used the Tascam UH7000. So my answer is going to be based solely on specification sheets. Looking at the specs, the Clarett has a gain range of plus 57 decibels. The UH7000 has a minimum mic sensitivity of negative 60 dBu, and the Audiofuse has a max gain of 72 decibels. As far as the EIN, which is the equivalent input noise, the Clarett and the UH7000 have an EIN of negative 128 decibels, and the Audiofuse has negative 129 decibels. So based on those specs, to me, it looks like the Audiofuse has the best preamp performance out of them because it has a lower EIN, negative 129, as opposed to negative 128. Yes, it's only a decibel. Yes, it will be negligible. Yes, nobody will be able to hear the difference, but on specs, it does have a better EIN performance, and it also has seemingly more gain. 72 decibels of gain. I think it was plus 6 to plus 72, which is an insane gain range and a ridiculous amount of gain to have. But with that being said, it also becomes very apparent why comparing audio gear is so incredibly difficult, especially when you are just looking at specs, because there is no standardization of the specs that are being reported by these companies. One is giving gain range, one is giving minimum sensitivity of the microphone, and another is giving max gain available. All very different specs unless you know exactly what you're looking at, and I may be misinterpreting some of these specs because there's no standardization. AES needs to come out with some kind of standardization, and these microphone companies and these interface companies need to adopt it to make it easier for the consumer to understand what they're getting when looking at these devices. So there you go. If I had to pick between those, based on specs, it does look like the Arturia Audiofuse is the winner. Next email comes from Ryan, and to summarize, he asks, what interface should I get for the Rode Procaster that is under $150? What are your thoughts on the Procaster? And what about the Scarlett Solo or the Yamaha MG06X? First up, the Procaster is a very fine microphone. I think you will have absolutely no issues with that. For an interface, I think that the Scarlett 2i2 2nd Gen would be a good option. Scarlett Solo, I've heard people say that the gain on the Scarlett Solo and the noise performance aren't quite up to par with the 2i2, but I'm not certain if that's the Solo 1st Gen versus the 2i2 2nd Gen. Not 100% clear on that, and I wasn't able to find that online. But as far as Focusrite, if you're running Windows, there have been quite a few known issues with people running into compatibility in terms of drivers and consistent performance, where after a while your voice will get robotic. You have to unplug the interface, plug it back in, and then it starts to work again. The MG06X, on the other hand, based on the spec sheet, it looks like it has 64 decibels of gain, which is plenty for the Procaster. And I think that might be a better option for you, since I have heard far less complaints about Yamaha and consistent performance on Windows, which is why people recommend the Steinberg stuff over Focusrite, because Steinberg, if I'm not mistaken, is owned by Yamaha or vice versa. Can't remember how that relationship works. Hope that helps. I'm burping. Let me drink some coffee. Ooh, it's cold. Last email comes from Matt. To summarize his, he says, I'm recording in a noisy / reflective environment, dynamic versus condenser. we will have untrained users doing screen recordings, and he is worried about proximity effect, off-axis rejection, and reflections being picked up as they move around the microphone a lot because they don't know proper microphone technique. Will a condenser be a better option? Matt, very, very good question and a very, very difficult question. Unfortunately, there is no quick solution to people having bad microphone technique in terms of the proximity effect, because that is going to be apparent on both dynamics and condensers. The only workaround I can think of would be get a microphone with something like variable D technology that does, or I guess the Shure KSM-8 as well, that limits the proximity effect. Or you could run a microphone in omnidirectional mode because that also eliminates proximity effects, but that will pick up all the ambient noise from your air vents as well as all the reflections from your room. So something like the KSM-8 from Shure or the Electro Voice RE320, RE16, RE20, RE27ND. A lot of Electro Voice microphones have the variable D technology, which would help curb some of the proximity effect. Also, the Electro Voice microphones do a fairly pretty impressive job at background noise rejection. So that would be a good way to start, looking at Electro Voice or the Shure KSM-8. Now, as far as the background noise from the air vents, it really does depend on how much noise is permissible in the recordings. If you're okay with a little bit more background noise but less preamp noise, you can go with a condenser. You will be able to have the microphone a little bit farther away, so you won't have as much variability in the bass in the recording, because chances are if you have the microphone back a couple of inches, then they're probably not going to lean in and get really close to the microphone and really accentuate that proximity effect. And you won't have as much preamp noise because condensers, hotter output, not going to have to drive them as hard, even if it's back 6 inches, a foot from the person. And in the email, you said that you were looking at the Rode NT1 kit. I think that if you do actually get Auralex foam, which is another thing that you mentioned in the email, that may be one of your better options. Very neutral microphone. It will pick up a lot of the ambient noise, but you say that the microphone, or the room rather, has a very audible noise because of the air vents that are constantly running. There's nothing that you're going to be able to do to remove that prior to hitting record. All microphones will likely pick that up if it is as prominent as you say. So it really is a way you could actually handle that would be record maybe 30 seconds with nobody talking, nothing, just of the room noise, and then use something like Waves Z Noise, or if you have, Isotope RX7, you could use their denoise plugins, any number of denoise plugins. You could use that 30 seconds to train the plugin to take out that noise, and then maybe that would help. Of course, that will degrade the quality of the voice that's being recorded, but if it is terribly distracting, you could do that, and that would help save some of the recording. So in my opinion, I would personally go dynamic, but it's up to you. I mean, the condenser will pick up slightly more ambient noise, slightly more reverb from the room, but yeah, it's up to you. I'd go dynamic, and I would force them to have the microphone within a couple inches. Maybe put like a do you remember cars in the 90s? They would have these pieces of wire sticking off the side. They were curb finders. Maybe you could do that with the microphone. Have a little piece of metal sticking off the microphone and just say, okay, go ahead and make sure that this piece of metal is touching your cheek at all time. And then that will force them to have decent microphone technique and stay consistent with their microphone placement and their positioning to the microphone. I feel like I'm rambling now, but that's a suggestion. Okay, Matt, thank you very much for the email. I know that was scattered, but I hope that helped. Everybody, thank you again for 150 or 151 amazing episodes, and you guys sticking. That's not me saying my episodes were amazing. That's me saying you're amazing for watching and listening for 151 episodes. Jeez Louise. I will talk to y'all next week. We will have a lot more news next week Talk to you later. Bye. Do you know what this is? This is a secret. All right, bye.
This has been a Geeks Rising production, your executive producer of Bandrew Scott. For more information, head over to www.geeksrising.com.